Hi, I'm Kevin, and this is Novel to You, where I read from my books so you can enjoy it as an audiobook when you're cycling, washing the car, cleaning the boat, making dinner, whatever you do, right? Just a way to enjoy an audiobook, take you to another world. We're reading from Taemane, which means diamond in Bantu. This is episode 19, and we're at chapter 30. The morning air held a sense of suspension, a kind of drifting uncertainty. Kate's room was straightened, and she wore fresh clothes. Mary had bandaged the cut on her eye. Her hair was washed and fell loosely across her shoulders. She sat still, just off the middle of the room, in her simple writing chair. Her feet were curled under her as if she was afraid to touch the floor. She huddled, trying to be invisible. Her only movement was the sensual stroking of the two linked wooden rings that bore her and Alex's names. Kate gazed at them, wanting them to speak to her somehow. Mary sat alone on the grass behind the big house. She swished her hand through the golden shafts of grass. Like bodies, they swayed and brushed off one another, merry little dances of existence. She searched across the plains, through the stillness of the mine, even into the skyline for a hint of her boy. There was nothing. Her fingers fiddled with the Leeds United football jersey, a child's size. It was a gift from Beth. Alex kept it in his room for almost 15 years. It was precious to him. Mary drew a deep breath. Her chest swelled as if to burst. She wanted to take in all the precious souls of the mind and keep them somehow in her heart. She could hold them. Her gaze drifted in the morning. Her large trunk-like arms pulled the precious little ones into her, the tiny feisty Beth, the goodness of her Thomas, and his friend for life, Carl, even the precocious Asif. She enveloped her two spirits, those two tired loves, Alex and Kate. She would hold them all, protect them all somehow. They were hers. Her bulk lumbered up. Her heavy body plodded back to the big house. She saw the police jeep arrive. Oh, the day was not done. If there was a sunrise, there was still hope. It was 11, and Claire was on her fourth gin and tonic. The mine was closed. Claire swirled two cocktails, one in her glass, one in her mind. The gin was simple and numbing. The cocktail of murder, rape, theft, and deception was somehow shifting. She had to be cautious of the ingredients. Had she murdered Nick? An accident with a knife in the chest? That was not plausible. Was Alex dead? The warmth of the day had not induced the young white policeman to join her. He was the same officer who worked with Alex during the previous smuggling episode. So the concerns at the mine were not new to him. Claire looked at him through loose, gin-fed eyes. He was not bad looking, but carried a wedding band on his finger. She could see he was a particular man and wanted to be sure everything was done in the appropriate manner. Claire also knew that the police were as liberal with their interpretation of appropriateness as was required to keep the position of the whites stable. I'd gone to Pretoria for a few days to look for my wedding dress, and he was... She broke off, and the sympathetic constable placed a hand on her shoulder. I can come back later. No, please stay. This kind of thing should be closed promptly. What I don't understand is why. When I met Alex a few months ago, he seemed eager to have the mine succeed and catch the smugglers. He was vital to our efforts. The smuggling must have been the cause of the fight. One accused the other. Maybe they were in it together. I don't know. Alex always had a short temper. The officer was surprised by the comment. He'd heard nothing but the best about Alex, and actually quite liked his humor through their long night together. In the end, it was Alex who saved him from the dog. Did he? I never thought he had a short temper, but, well, you would know. Oh, he did, and he was a very powerful man. He was raised here, but never quite fit in with anyone. It is strange to live beside someone for so many years and never really know the violence in their heart. I guess we will never know now. The little boy saw the police jeep and looked up at the big house. He saw the white policeman and Miss Clare on the veranda. He scampered around the base of the garden to the back kitchen. He peered in the kitchen, but he couldn't see Mary. Unsure, he ventured into the big house alone. He tried all the ground floor rooms, but there was no movement, no sound, only stillness in the big house. Unable to find Mary, he went upstairs and looked down the long corridor. He had been here twice before, helping Mary, but was unsure which room was Miss Kate's. He tried first the right, then the left. He listened for anyone inside the rooms. It was the second door on the left. He heard her crying. He knocked twice and slid the note under the door. He turned and shot down the stairs and out of the house in a flash before Miss Clare could question him. The young officer paced back and forth near Clare as she sat focusing on her gin. I've spoken to a few miners. The security wardens seem the best group, but they don't know very much or they won't say anything. They are an untrustworthy pack. The men did say Nick and Alex hated each other and were definitely trying to kill each other. According to the security wardens, Nick was defending himself. Alex was out for blood, for whatever reason. Greed among thieves, I suppose. The warden said he came into the mine recklessly, went straight for Nick. After the attack, the game was up, I suppose. That is obviously why Alex has disappeared. It's terrible. Nick was trying so hard to stop them smuggling, and we were hoping to get married soon. And now, the officer stepped forward in a fatherly manner far beyond his years and placed a hand on Claire's shoulder. You've been very brave, Miss Ostenstadt, and I think I'll have this cleared up in a few days so you can get on with your lives. There was a sound of feet tumbling down the stairs as Kate dashed out. Mary, Mary, you won't believe it! Kate burst through the front door onto the veranda and saw Mary on the far side of Claire, approaching with a tray. Kate dashed to Claire and hugged her. She then moved to the shocked Mary, who's been listening in disbelief to Claire. They found him! Alex! He's alive! He's alive! She jumped and danced around Mary. Mary tried to warn her off. The constable approached and snatched the paper from Claire. Claire stood up and tried to silence the ecstatic Kate. From behind the officer, she held out her panicked arms to stop Kate, to keep her quiet. But Kate was absolutely oblivious. Mary saw the distress in Claire's eyes and hugged Kate, trying to smooth her enthusiasm. Kate blurted out, Let's go, Mary, come on, call George. He can drive us to Marundi. Jem's been looking after Alex. Let's go, come on now, he's going to be okay. I'll pick him up. Don't you worry yourself, ladies. We'll close this off. Kate turned confused and asked first Mary, then Claire, what happened? The officer was already off the veranda and hurrying down the garden to his jeep, where two constables waited. Claire stared after him. Kate walked in front of Claire. Claire didn't want to look at Kate and turned away, slipping into the house. Kate stared after her, then at Mary, who stood stunned at the end of the veranda, the dawning of fear on her face. Her eyes bulged as she hurried toward the small women. Mary seized Kate's arm and spun her toward the step and down onto the garden path. We have to get to Jamina's. George! She bellowed as she bustled Kate down to the mine. The big woman was moving fast. What's happened? What's going on, Mary? Kate was confused. George, God damn you! Where are you? Mary screamed. He appeared out of a storage shed and groggily crossed to her. The big woman threw him behind the wheel of the Land Rover, and Kate and Mary piled in the passenger side. To Marundi! Now, George! As fast as you can! Kate glanced up at the house as they left. Claire stood alone in the doorway, watching. She looked very small. As they drove away, Claire wandered back into the big empty house. The Land Rover was still rolling when Mary sprung the door and stepped out. Kate tumbled out after her. They were met by half a dozen women in front of Jamina's house. The women tried to stop Kate and Mary going in and formed a virtual barricade in front of the door. They explained to Mary and Zosa what had happened and that police tore Alex off the bed and put him in their truck. Jamina tried to stop them but was beaten. Before Mary can explain it to Kate, the little terrier of a woman wriggled free of the four women holding her and barged through the door. Having heard Kate outside, Jamina had been trying to hide all the bloody linen, but was caught holding armfuls of it. When Kate burst through the door, they stared at each other. What could be said? Alex? Alex! She raced around the small hut, searching for him. Jamina stepped in front of her and blocked her path. He's not here, Kate. They took him. But I got a note. He's here. Alex is here. Kate shook Jamina violently. He's gone, Kate. They took him. No. He's here. He must be. She screamed for him. Alex, Alex. She looked at Jamina. A swirl of anger crossed her like a wash of delirium. She grabbed the little woman's hair, curling it tight in her fingers. Take me to him! Take me to Alex! Right now! Take me to him! She shook Jamina. Mary's arms curled around Kate's chest. Some of the other women wrapped her up, trying to pull her off Jamina. He's gone, Kate! The police took him. They say he murdered Nick. No, not Alex, not my Alex. Kate ripped the bloodied bed linen from Jamina's arms. They fell at her feet. The dark brown blood smears beckoned up at her. She stopped fighting the big women who had bundled her in their arms. She went limp and slipped down to the sheets lying on the floor. She knew they were Alex's. She smelled them and held them to her face. She crumpled the little bundle of bloody linen, hiding them from everyone. She could smell him. He was there for her. And we'll stop there. Maybe we won't. Let's keep going. Yes, we keep going. Chapter 31. It had been a week, and Mary was still unable to remove the bloodied sheets from Kate's grasp. Of course, Dr. Villers said she should keep them. It was one of the last shreds that anchored her in the drifting mental despair that had swallowed the young woman. Unable to control her emotions, Kate lived in a sea of nightmares. For the first 3 days, Mary had got water and small amounts of food into her, though she was dazed and unresponsive. Then, after the result was released following a 3-day trial, Kate swung into an even darker spiral. Her mind swam in a contorted river of darkness. Kate sat dazed and unresponsive to Mary or the doctor. The doctor thought her mind was closing in on itself, virtually collapsing. He was convinced that Kate was willing this to happen and wanting to physically grow weaker and weaker. Though they tried to watch her, they were losing the battle against the demon of despair that Kate was courting in her mind. Kate could feel her mind look in at itself. There was no ache of hunger, no pounding in her stomach. The shadows that drifted through the room, the big dark drape that was Mary, or the whippet-like scurrying doctor, the pleasing Jamina, none of them saw what Kate saw. They were background shadows that lingered as murky shapes to what she saw and heard. They were the nightmare to her real dream world. It was obvious they were not part of her reality and were just intrusions of her imagination. She could hear Alex's breath blow across the nape of her neck and down the small of her back. Her breasts were pressed hard against the muscles that carved his chest. The warmth and sweat of passion glided between their chests. His smell was hers. She pulled her head back, gazing up at him. He leaned back. His hands rounded her breasts, sliding up her chest to the base of her neck. They cupped her neck as he pulled her close. "We'll always love each other," he whispered. She looked into the black pupils and saw her smile inside him. But then she saw no one else. The pupils were ringed in bright red, and his eyes no longer spoke of their love. Above one eye, the skin of his forehead protruded, hanging down from the massive internal swelling. The smooth, taut, black skin of his face screamed with purple and red lacerations. The swellings, too numerous to separate one from the other, distorted his face into another being completely. She brushed her lips across the face resting below the twisted, torn lips. She held the collars of his shirt, but it wasn't his. It didn't smell of Mary's fine washing and ironing. It wasn't crisp. It was dirty, thick prison denim. She held the collars tight. Her knuckles went white. The denim ripped at her nails, but she held him up. He stared at her, vacant, without expression. Her eyes shifted, and they met his. They focused on her. Obviously, they recognized her and called out. There was a click, followed by a thud, and then a swing of wood. The fabric ripped from her fingers, a flurry, and then there was the stretching squeak of rope. She screamed and pulled on the rope, the white bloody sheets on the collar. They won't come back. She wrapped herself again in them. She must stop the collar from slipping away. She called his name softly. Alex, please, Alex. She felt his big arms cradle her. There was a click again, and she huddled closer. The second click was of the door opening. The doctor paused in the doorway and glanced back at the tiny figure wrapped in sheets, pulling maniacally at them, then kissing and smelling them. Kate was encased in boughs of love. Mary's massive arms wrapped around her. A better medicine than Mary the doctor could not provide. Mary saw him looking up at them and nodded. He will leave them again and return in 2 days. That would be his 5th visit to the little woman. He shook his head, trying to rid himself of his own futility in treating Kate. The doctor closed the door and knew he must return to the left. He would rather not today. It would be so much easier just to walk down the hallway to the right, down the stairs and out the front door. He could come back in a few days, and then there may be hope, or at least the glimmer of possibility. But that was not a realistic option. He would have to go to Claire's room. She sat to the left of Kate's door and fiddled with a handkerchief, strangely engrossed with the fabric. She looked up, and he saw her totally exposed, with no place to find any consolation that may still the torments that ravaged her family. She, like her sister, was a brave woman, passionate. She stood when he approached, looking him straight in the eye, as her father would have done. Well, it's hard to say. She may lose it. With your father passing only a few months ago, and now this, so quickly too, less than a week. How on earth the courts came to that decision is utterly beyond me. Railroaded by white police or something. He was getting upset and slowed himself to answer her question. She may lose it. I've given her a mild sedative. I don't think too many drugs are good for her in this state. The best thing is to let Mary bring her back. He turned to leave, but then stopped. There was trepidation in his body. He was unsure if what he had to say he really believed. It's terrible to say, but these days, a half-caste. What? A child? Of course. Kate's more than 3 months. Alex's child. We must hope she comes around mentally and, of course, manages to carry the child through. He looked at Claire. She obviously had no idea. I thought you knew. Claire stood with her head tipped forward, her mouth with the bee of baby pursed on her lips. He left her as she sank slowly into her chair. The evening shadows stretched across the room as the windows glowed like golden lantern panels. Everything in the room was suspended, lost. Kate had calmed, partly from the sedative and partly from the soft songs of Mary. She shifted around, childlike, in the voluminous lap of the bigger woman, staring up at the roly-poly face. Mary? Yes, I'm here. Promise you'll take care of our baby? Kate sat up. Promise me. It's all I have of Alex. Of course, child. We'll take care of the baby. You'll be a good mother. Now rest. You and your baby need to be strong. For Alex. He knows you'll be a good mother. Just rest, then we can eat. Okay, you have to feed that little tummy of yours. Kate let herself be pulled down into Mary's lap. Mary stroked her hair. The door latch clicked open, and there was a flicker of recognition in Kate's body. Claire stepped tentatively into the room. Kate's eyes focused through her tears at the viper's cause of all her tragedy. She reeled out of Mary's lap and grabbed an ornament off a nearby table. She whipped around and hurled it at Claire. It shattered against the door. She grabbed another. Get out, you bitch! You murdering bitch! You get out of my room! You get out of my life! She threw another ornament and it splattered in a shower of crystal shards. Claire darted out and closed the door. Die! You brought that murdering bastard here. I want you dead, Claire. I hate you. You die, you bitch. Just die. Claire slumped to the floor and Mary was there again to wrap her in her arms. Claire stood alone in the hall and leaned against the door. She listened to the cries swimming from a heart torn open by her. The tears seemed bottomless. She turned and wandered through the house to the stairs. She just wanted to get away from the disasters of this house, of this world, Kate's world, just away. We'll stop there. That's the end of chapter 31. The end. We will see you in the next one. Until then, take care. Bye for now.